And welcome in, everybody, wherever you are, however you may be listening. This is the Coach's Corner. Welcome to Season 2. How's it going, Coach?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How was, how was the holidays? What'd you end up doing?
We did a lot of nothing. Watched a lot of football, but we had everybody under one roof. That's the main and most important thing, and so it made it a really great holiday.
Awesome. So, I mean, a lot is going on. You got the playoffs getting ready to kick off for the NFL. The playoffs have already started rolling for college. And of course, we might as well start with that one, being as some pretty major players got bumped right in the first round. And a little bit of a surprise to have all four number one seeds drop out of their respective brackets. Right. I guess before we get to that, what do you think of the bracket system? Because personally, I'm not a fan. I'd like reseeding.
I'm not a fan either. I think that if you're going to do this, I think they need to just go ahead and go to 16 teams. I think it's too many right now. It seems like it. I kind of like the old way, but I want to talk about a little bit about the four teams that had the buys all losing, and why did that happen? I think, and I just believe this, and you see it in the NFL too. Although with pros, they don't have anything else, and they play so many games, they need the rest. But you get into the bowl season now in college football, there's so many things going on that it's harder not to play, in my opinion, than it is to be playing. You look at how Ohio State looked against Tennessee, and then how they looked in, a week later against Oregon. I mean, Texas played well. Notre Dame played really well against Georgia. Penn State looked very, very polished against Boise. I think it just helps to play, especially with college kids. You think, all of the things that are going on, with the staff, whether there's movement, there's the portal, there's your guys in the portal, there's other guys you're trying to get in the portal, you're trying to prepare for a game. How much, how are you utilizing the practice opportunities? How much rest versus how much work you're trying to, factor all of those things in. And I just think when a team sits too long, they lose their edge. And when you're in a tournament, you can't afford to lose your edge for even one series. It could be the difference between winning and losing the game. So,
that's the other thing that's, significantly different college to pro is for the pros, it's 1 week.
Right.
For these number one seeds, for the people watching that may not follow super closely, they had a few weeks off.
Right.
And so that can absolutely disrupt momentum. I mean, you can watch 1 week do it, but pros are so used to having, like a Thursday and then a Sunday night. So they got that mini bye. Like they have elements throughout the season where they have that happen. So getting a week off isn't that big of a deal. You start talking about 2-3 a month off.
Right.
You're going to be rusty. I don't care how good you are.
Yeah. I mean, an NFL team would be rusty with that much time off. I mean, Absolutely. It's just, yeah. So I'm in favor of expanding it, or reducing it, but don't give anybody a bye. I mean,
I think the bye is here to stay. I think what they need is it pushed up. I mean, I guess you can't because you have the Army-Navy game and stuff. So, I mean, they have scheduling conflicts along the way. Right. But, I mean, having your first-round bye teams have that much time off, I mean, man, talk about being set up for failure. Yeah. But I feel like the bracket system does something very similar, is that Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon bracket was the hardest bracket of this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have made sense to have Ohio State over where SMU is.
Right.
because then this bracket layout could make sense. Otherwise, it really needs to be a reseeding schedule similar to the NFL, because having Oregon, Ohio State, and Tennessee all meet each other in the first 2 weeks, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, correct.
And then you look at the one below it, right? You got Clemson, Arizona State, and Texas. And not to take anything away from them schools, but that is not Tennessee, Ohio State, and Oregon.
No. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess since we're talking about this, where do you think these end up? I'm looking at the bracket to the left here. You got Ohio State, Texas. I like Texas here, and only because Ohio State is coming off of a big win, big emotional win against the number one team. And there's, when you look at sports as a whole, whenever you have one of those big emotional wins, there's usually a little bit of a letdown. And then you get that Ohio State where they have a tendency to get in their own way from time to time. It seems like this could be that game.
Yes. It's interesting that you start with that one, because to me, I think that's a national championship game. I think
no question.
I think whoever wins that game will eventually be the national champion, and I think it's a toss-up. It definitely is a toss-up. I like the way Ohio State's playing right now. I thought they looked really good last week against Oregon, team that had beaten them earlier in the year. I like them in this matchup, but I think it's truly a toss-up type of game. Whoever plays the cleanest game, takes care of the football, doesn't make mistakes, penalties. I think kicking game will be huge. I'll give Texas the edge there in the kicking game. Whoever plays the cleanest game, without saying, that'll determine that outcome.
It'll be which Ewers, right?
Yeah,
which Ewers shows up. If it's 3-pick Ewers, it's a wrap.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. And then, on the other side, man, I kind of like Notre Dame. I just think they've had the harder path. Nothing against Penn State, but I just, I think Notre Dame's definitely played with an edge since Northern Illinois. There's been several times where they could have played down and didn't. They beat Army and Navy, which those are traditionally always been good games. But they turned those into laughers. They were absolute, laughers. And haven't seen Notre Dame do that with two service academies in a while. I like this team. I like the team. Quarterback's playing well. I see it being, Notre Dame and, like I said, whoever comes out ahead, Texas and Ohio State. I'll go with Ohio State in the final.
Yeah, I mean, I actually kind of like Penn State here. I think this is going to be another tight game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just because I like how clean Penn State plays.
Yes.
They're a very disciplined team.
I'll tell you what, they made some spectacular plays down the field in that, in that Boise State game.
Yes.
I mean, it was like a highlight reel. Every time you looked up, they're making sensational plays.
Yep.
So it should be a fun game.
But I do think you're right. It doesn't matter if it's Penn State or Notre Dame. They lose to either one of Ohio State or Texas.
That's what I think.
But, I mean, if Ohio State comes out and plays like they did against Tennessee and Oregon, then, I mean, they could very easily just run the table on this thing.
I agree.
All right. And then, of course, got to talk some NFL here. Oops. So we'll kick it off with the fumbling of the first round pick. That's for some reason nobody wanted.
Yeah.
So the Titans end up with this thing, and even though they do need a quarterback, do you think they take one?
Ugh. Man, that's a tough call. That'll be the $1 million. I think I think they're probably more inclined to trade down with somebody that does.
That's what I was saying.
And maybe maybe they get multiple picks. They need help on the offensive line. I think that's where one of their biggest areas. I don't see them taking a quarterback with the first pick, to answer your question, though.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't either. I mean, they have so many holes. Going and getting a quarterback doesn't really fix those. And if you trade back, you get extra picks. You can get a serviceable bridge guy. There's going to be plenty of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of the route I would go. The Browns probably take the wrong quarterback.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's just what the Browns do.
Yeah.
The Giants, on the other hand, that's interesting.
Yeah, that you could see them trying to, move and trade up with the Titans. I could see that happening.
That's the thing that's funny is they need a lot of help too.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think maybe they run it back with Drew Lock, and with that third pick, get Hunter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because then you end up with a DB, which they desperately need. They have a decent defensive line, but they need some back end help.
Right.
And then you also give the ability to have some offensive snaps with him opposite of Neighbors, which means he's going to get open because Neighbors going to get double teamed. So, I mean, like there's some elements to that could definitely work for the Giants. Obviously you have to overcome the fact that they decided not to get rid of a GM and not get rid of their coach. So I don't know how good this team's really going to be. And then just because I think the NFL thought it was funny, they also gave them the hardest schedule coming up this season. So now, of course, when they put those out, it doesn't actually mean anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Next year. But if you go off win percentage this year, they have the hardest schedule going into next season.
All right. Wonderful.
They're like, oh, you're bad? Cool. You're going to be worse. But if that holds true, and, by and large, it mostly will, right? There'll be like a couple of teams that fall apart, but for the most part, it'll be kind of accurate.
Yep.
That means they're going to have a top pick again next season. So that would be when I would think maybe they go after their quarterback. So one more year without their guy, and they'll have a realistic top 5 pick again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this quarterback class is a little bit deeper next year.
Yep. If you're Dable, you're going, oh man, I hope I'm the guy picking then the following year.
Yeah. Well, so the fact that they're bringing him back makes me think he's safe for at least one more year, right?
Yeah.
Because no matter how it plays out, you either have Drew Lock or, a backup bridge guy,
right? Or
you have a rookie quarterback, which unless you're the Bears, you don't want to fire everybody after the first season of a rookie. So it seems like it almost doesn't matter what happens next year. Dable has 2 years.
Yeah.
Which I think is the end of his contract anyway, right?
Possibly. I'm not sure.
So I don't know.
I like your logic. Your logic makes sense.
Yeah, well, and that's why I don't think they do it. The Raiders pick, I think, is probably one of the more intriguing ones to me.
Uh-huh.
And because they have a decent defense, they don't have a quarterback. They're within range to move up and get, a guy like Shedeur.
Right.
because they don't have the bridge guy in the building. So they got to do something at quarterback no matter what, because, O'Connell's not the guy, and neither's Minshew.
Right.
So they got to do something. Shedeur, depending on who they get a coach, I guess, seems like a Raiders type of player.
Yep.
The rest of these guys, I think they just mess up.
It'd be interesting. It'd be very interesting. I'm surprised they're not kicking Dion's name around for the Vegas job.
They were for a while, and Dion even said that the Raiders were a team he would consider.
Right.
Now he goes on to say, "I'm not leaving the Buffaloes and all of this." So, although he has to do that because otherwise he'd tank his own recruiting class.
Sure.
But do I think there's an outside shot of that? Sure. I think it might be the slow play, though, because the Raiders reached out to Bill Belichick.
Right.
Right. And say Dion stays true to what he says. He's going to stick with Colorado. Shedeur gets drafted, lands with the Raiders. Bill Belichick is there. Belichick's only going to, realistically, 5 years tops?
Yeah.
Because that'd make him almost 80.
Right.
So you have to imagine 5 years tops for that. If that holds true, then Dion would be about done with his Colorado tenure. He could link back up with his kid in Vegas. If you're doing the slow play.
Sure.
I don't know if Mark Davis looks that far ahead, but
yeah. Or Dion could just link up with their son wherever he goes, for that matter.
I mean, that's true. That's true. So
that's the master plan.
It would be. I mean, a lot of things have to go right for that to happen, right?
No doubt.
So we got plenty of people getting fired.
Yep.
Right. You got 6 head coaches that are all out the door now, and start this thing off with the Jags. I kind of wish Travis could have popped in here for a minute.
Yeah, that would have been fun. It would have been great to get his perspective.
I mean, who on this list do you like? Obviously, the Jags Ben Johnson is a clear-cut favorite across the board for most of these teams. Yeah. I think literally everybody's going to give them a call. Who else do you see on here that would make sense? For me, I actually kind of like Saleh here because you watched what happened with New York. Soon as he left, that defense was not the same.
No,
right?
It wasn't. Yeah.
And when you look at the Jags, what's the one thing they desperately need help on?
Defense.
Because the offense is decent. They just need a defense that can do something. Right. And he could add that stability.
Yep. Yeah, you got to kind of put your your GM hat on a little bit, and knowing that Balky is kind of maybe treading on thin ice. He's got to make a great hire, but he's also got to get somebody that he knows he can work with. So for me, that makes 2 names on that list make a lot of sense. Saleh, for what you mentioned, and then I believe, did they overlap somewhere before?
Who?
Saleh and Balky.
Oh, I think you're right. I think they did. I can't remember exactly where offhand. But I think they did have a year where there was some overlap. Yeah. I'll have to look it up because I don't remember exactly.
There might be some familiarity there, and then the other one's Monken. Yes. A guy that now people aren't talking a lot about, but look, he's they know him in the building. He was, He was on the staff before, and so there's some familiarity there as well. So, but there's a lot of really good names, talented coaches on this list. I don't think I don't think you can make a bad choice from anybody on that list, honestly. Maybe, the one that's surprising is a little bit is Patrick Graham, the Raiders DC.
Although, all things being equal, the Raiders' defense wasn't their problem.
No, exactly. And, it's hard to see or sell a fan base on, hiring a coordinator off of a staff that just got fired. You know what I mean? That's to be your head coach. Especially that hasn't been a head coach yet. So they may be wanting to know about as much about him as a defensive coordinator. That could be a defensive coordinator interview disguised as a head coach interview. You never know.
Absolutely. And I think Saleh might end up with a couple of those as well.
Sure, because that's you have to understand how the league works. If I'm under contract, all right, with the team, which even though the Raiders have been fired, they haven't fired Patrick Graham. He's still under contract. So the only way a team can talk to him is to request permission. And the Raiders aren't going to do that because they realize he's an asset and they want to let their new head coach decide his fate whenever they hire their new head coach. So the way to get around that, or at least have a chance to talk to somebody, is to, the only one that can't be blocked are head coaching interview requests. Teams can't block those. So, that's a way to get a Patrick Graham now in your building and have a conversation with him.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Kind of a slick workaround.
Yeah. I mean, it gives him like, hey, I don't have to take this first offer from the Raiders because I know Jacksonville's already told me they'll match whatever they give me, So
absolutely.
Little gamesmanship that goes on, working the gray area in the rules. It's not,
I mean, if you want to win, the gray area is where you have to live.
You have to live there, right?
Let's see. We got the Bears. The Bears are going to talk to quite a few people. One of them I do like that was a little bit of a surprise was Pete Carroll.
Yep.
And it's something that I've said on some other shows. I like Pete here because one thing the Bears never have is energy and like a positive culture, right? Like their whole team operates like Jay Cutler, right? You're just like, meh. And if there was anybody that could instill energy in the room, that's Pete.
Yeah.
So I like his ability, and he would go there with a young quarterback that, admittedly holds the ball too long, but that's a coaching.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
He has some weapons. The defense is good. Right. Yep. So as long as they can tweak a few things, get a little bit better protection, although they did do better towards the end of the season in that offensive line, that's a team that with the right coaching could be competitive.
Yep. No, there's no doubt. I think that of the jobs that are open, to me, that's the team that's the fastest, the quickest you could turn it around because they've got a good young quarterback. The defense is good. Not that they can't be better. Kicking games was really solid for them this year. To me, it's a very attractive job. When I look at this list, the first thing that jumped out to me was they're casting a really wide and broad net. They're interviewing a lot of people. And that's kind of been the trend the last couple of years. If you follow these things, people they're at least when the preliminary part, they're bringing in a lot of different people. That's a lot to interview. You imagine if you and I were interviewing these that group right there, if we were even just spending an hour with each candidate, we'd be worn out by the end of that. So, but yeah, going back to the thing that stood out is the number of former head coaches. And I had read somewhere, or I thought I read somewhere where that was something that they were specifically wanting. They were wanting somebody that had, head coaching experience. So, even like David Shaw, Mike Vrabel, along with Coach Carroll, that gives you, and then, Brian Flores, Arthur Smith, both guys that have, had, head coaching opportunities in the league. So, but yeah, it's
Shaw was a surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But it's funny how he keeps popping up. You know what I mean?
He has an advisory role, as I recall now.
Right.
So, I mean, he's in the league.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's interesting because it's been
I think he's in Denver. He's in Denver.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's been a couple of years since he was, actively coaching.
Right.
And so that one was a little bit of a shock. The Flores one I thought was interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't think that's a good fit. I could be wrong, but that one just personality wise, it doesn't seem like that would be a great. Yeah. It doesn't seem like it elevates that team.
Right.
The other one that I was a little surprised on this list was Weaver.
Yeah, that one is also surprising. But I mean, a lot of times, like people they get these names, right? And it might not be for this time, but they hear the name enough times that they want to just get him in interview, see how he does, and keep tracking him for the future. There's a lot of that goes on.
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with kicking the tires, right?
Right.
And then Kafka pops up again.
And the other thing too that you're doing is you're looking at, all right, you're getting Aaron Glenn, you're getting Anthony Weaver, you're getting Brian Flores. All right, so you have two defensive coordinators from your division in your building. You have another, defensive coordinator from the league. It's another set of eyes. It's an opinion through the interview on what do they think of your personnel? What do you think about? You matched up against us twice this year offensively. What did you think? How would you? What would you have done differently? How do you think we need to? How would you improve the offense if you were the head coach? And so they're gathering intel at the same time. You know what I mean?
I mean, that definitely makes sense. I didn't really think about it that way, but if you're the Bears and you're looking up at your division, yeah, I mean, getting that feedback, absolutely.
Sure.
And if you can land them, get them in the building, not only are you still building your team, but now you have some insights of how it is you can beat at least one of the teams.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I like that.
They have both coordinators from the Lions going to be in that building. So
yeah, no, it's that is definitely going to be the job to watch. The rest of them, like the Jags will be a very interesting one too. The rest of them all have very real issues.
Right. And
then, of course, like we were talking about before.
Yeah, to me, this one screams of. You contrast this with the Bears list. This one screams we already know who we want. So
this has to be Vrabel's getting hired.
Yeah, or they're gonna. Ben Johnson can knock their socks off, or they knock the socks off of him. Yep. And if they can work out a deal, if not, then. Vrabel's going to get this job and he's going to go to work immediately putting together his staff, and he'll, they'll have half of their staff in place before the other teams even get through their second round of interviews.
Exactly. Yeah. No, this one absolutely feels like they know who they want. You got the obligatory interviews up top,
Right.
and then you get fired as a GM if you don't look at Ben Johnson.
Right. Yep.
But
and look, both of those guys, Pep and Byron would be great. Those are not. I think they're both good, strong head coach candidates.
Yep.
It's just that they've been out for a little while, but they're top level offensive coordinator candidates as well. So
I could see Vrabel bringing Leftwich in.
Yep.
Like, I think personality wise, I think that would be a solid marriage there.
Sure.
And then, of course, a team that is interviewing everyone under the sun. Oh, wait, not yet. Well, we'll skip ahead to it because they literally, I mean, there's nobody they're not interviewing.
Right.
I mean, this list is hilariously long.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, this is weeks of interviews.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's too much, but to each his own.
I like the Rex interview because he was the last one that.
The other thing is like, where does the GM search factor into this? Is that going to be done where the new GM is going to have some say in who the next head coach is, or are they just going to marry them together? Because
I think they're going to do
that doesn't make it a happy marriage for either side if you do it that way.
I think they're going to do what Seattle did when they had Pete and Schneider come together, right? Like, they just kind of, you guys are going to work together, figure it out. I mean, it worked for the first 5 years, right?
Right.
So it does feel like that's kind of how it's headed, though.
Yeah. It's an interesting list for sure.
The Rivera one, that's a surprise to me in a big way.
Well, I mean, yeah, it'd be something. But to me, it's no more surprising than Rex Ryan. I mean, Rex has been out when's the last year Rex coached?
15, 14.
It's
been a while.
It's been a decade. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's because I guess why I think that one is less surprising than Rivera is because he was the last one there that had any success at all.
True. And he had almost unprecedented success, really.
Yeah, right. Back-to-back AFC Championship games. They built their team in order to take the Patriots down, which they did twice. I mean, so he can coach, right?
Yes,
like, nobody's debating that. I mean, he was able to win with Sanchez. So I think I think what helps him get this phone call and get the interview, which I believe happened yesterday, is he got let go, but not by the ownership. It was by the GM at the time.
Gotcha.
That GM is gone. Ownership is obviously still there. So I think that gets him the foot in the door. Does it get him hired? Yeah, probably not. But it at least gets him the interview. Rivera, Washington was such a disaster, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was not a good experience. Obviously he had a lot of success with the Panthers, got to a Super Bowl, but his tenure in Washington, I thought, was going to really taint his ability to get a job again. So for him to be at least called, right, is great for Rivera. Yep,
it is. Well, I mean, I think Ron still has a real strong reputation around the league. I mean, he's, there are a lot of people like Ron Rivera. He's a very likable guy.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like he was set up for success in Washington. So I don't want to say that he was like at at a franchise that isn't a dumpster fire, right?
Sure.
Like he was in the last years of a team that was being forced to sell.
Mhm.
They didn't have a ton of talent on the team. So, it's not like him flaming out there was really on him.
I agree.
And if I remember right, they took like half his coaching staff too, right? Like they fired him.
Oh, yep, for sure.
So I do like the Josh McCown, at least interview here, right? Just because of what he's able to do with Darnold.
Yep.
I don't know what their answer is at quarterback though.
Yeah, I mean, you think that's kind of look at the quarterback guys that are on this list. All right, I'll start. Arthur Smith, Josh McCown, Bobby Slowick.
Yep.
Obviously Brian Greasy, and then we all know Ben Johnson's up there somewhere, right? Wait a minute, Ben Johnson's not on the list.
He was not on their list.
Wow.
So I mean, that's
that might be, it might be indicative of what their intentions are. You know what I mean? If they hire a QB guy, then they're probably going to try to move up and get one of those guys.
Yeah. Let's see. Where were they picking?
Matt Nagy's on there too. Another
Yep.
QB guy.
Yep. Let's see. Let's run back here real quick. They're seventh. So, I mean, they're within range to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I like. I like that Steve Spagnuolo is on there. I mean, Spags has, had a run as a head coach, been successful, and I mean, has done a phenomenal job in Kansas City with the defense there. Spags is a guy that's very, very, very much, deserving of another shot. It's funny how. It's just funny how the powers that be, how they see things. You know what I mean? Because you'd think Spags would be like just a natural, but they're trying to win their third consecutive, right?
Yep.
Would it be? And he just hasn't gotten much interest. It's interesting.
Yeah, which is a surprise. Or, it also makes you wonder how actively is he listening to those, to when they reach out? Because, I mean, it is tough to want to leave a winner, right?
True.
The other one I did like on here that they're the only ones giving him a call is Vance Joseph.
Yep. Another former head coach with the Broncos defense has been stellar all year. They've done a really good job.
Well, and even before, right, when it was the dumpster fire, like the defense was still good.
Right.
It was the only thing they did well.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got the Saints as well. Yep. They don't have quite the litany of prospects. Kafka again, so a lot of teams are taking a look at him.
Yeah, this one's interesting because it's definitely pared down a lot more, right?
Yep.
There's David Shaw again, so he's got 2 interviews. Joe Brady. Joe would be popular because people will remember Joe as being the play caller and offensive coordinator for Joe Barrow at LSU when they won the national championship. So that would be a popular guy to bring back home to the boot. Aaron Glenn is another guy there that they're very familiar with. Was on the staff with the Saints, played for the Saints. Yeah, those are.
Yeah, I was going to say he was with the Saints when Peyton was still there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and then and at least they're giving Darren the chance, right?
Yes.
Like they're at least going to hear him out.
Yep.
So I always appreciate that when teams, give the interim guy a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that the Jets are giving Ulbrich an interview, and one other team, I think, is giving the interim an interview, formal interview.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see it. I mean,
Sure.
You always know it's an outside shot, right?
Yep.
Like it's very rare for them to actually get promoted into that spot that that Pierce did.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to at least hear him out, because a lot of teams don't even do that. They're like, "Oh yeah, you did a great job while you're here. See ya."
Yep.
So, and then of course we got the Raiders. They haven't actually published any of their intentions as far as who they're going to talk to yet.
Yep.
They did express interest in Bill Belichick. They have reached out, and it does sound like Belichick would be open to the idea of not doing his contract with UNC if this were to come together.
Yeah, it's a $10 million buyout.
Something like that. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with this one. I mean, wow. Talk about. Well, I guess they'll be a lot richer at North Carolina if that happens.
True. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it also, this one has that element of, it brings Belichick and Brady back together as well.
Yes.
Because Brady will be involved.
Yep.
So I am curious how much involvement Brady's really going to have, though.
Yeah. Well, knowing Brady, he'll probably want a lot, because he does. Look, he's studying. I mean, he's still studying the personnel in the league. He's doing it as his job as an analyst, just like he did it as his job as a player. I just don't think you take somebody with that competitive drive, that much knowledge and insight, and they take a role, they buy into a role, right? This wasn't gifted to them. It cost them whatever, how many $1 million. And just tell them to sit over in the corner and be quiet. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, but I mean, how much involvement can you really have, because he has his deal with Fox? I think that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, it does. It's a fine line. But I don't think he's just passively sitting back. You know what I mean? Now, again, what leverage does he have? It's another, that's a whole nother thing. What did he buy? 10% of the team?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right. And of course, it's an ownership group, right? So it's not.
Sure.
It's not just Brady.
Yeah. Yeah. So he may not have much influence at all.
I mean, I guess more than anything, that comes down to Mark Davis, right? It's however much input he allows Brady to have.
Sure.
So, I mean, I would imagine if he could, Mark Davis would be open to it, right? You want to have the smartest football guys around you as you can.
Sure.
It seems like with the Fox contract that he has, and then of course all of the little caveats in that contract. That's like, you can't be on a staff. You can't, there's certain elements that you can't talk about.
Yeah, they're worried about, like, look, the media groups, when they come in to do a game, they come in the day before or whatever. They have access to a lot. They get to ask a lot of questions. There's game plan questions. The coaches will share stuff with them to help them do their job, knowing that it's not gonna, they're not gonna let it out ahead of time or anything like that. And it's you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of deal. So the concern is that he's learning about teams' rosters, injuries, whatever, and then taking that back to the Raiders and giving the Raiders a competitive advantage, which that's a legitimate concern, right? So
Absolutely.
those are, it's not so much what the conversations he has with the Raiders about the Raiders and Raider business. It's about conversations he has with the Raiders about personnel on other teams. And,
Yeah, well, I mean, they have problems with that in the real world. They call it insider trading.
yeah,
You know, so I definitely get it. It seems like it would hamper his ability to really help the team, right?
yeah. I mean, again, what we don't know is how much, how much of that was hammered out ahead of time. What the expectation was, what was his expectation, what are they going to ask of him? I'm sure that was all ironed out ahead of time.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean,
and it might be nothing. It may be nothing for him more than just a business investment. You know what I mean? That's the other side of it that we just don't know.
I think it's because we've watched him be so competitive playing for so long. It's hard to wrap your head around the idea that that's all it could be.
Yeah, well,
it seems
it gives you to me, it tells me how much money those owners have, because when someone's played as long as Tom Brady has and made as much money in contracts and endorsements, and he can still only afford to be part of a ownership group on a team, those the owners are still playing with all the chips in that league. That's for sure.
No question. They always say there's no value in a zero, but if it's ahead of the decimal point, there sure is.
There sure is. Yep.
All right, let's take a look at our playoffs. So, we'll kick it off with the Lions and Rams. This game is about to be real interesting. Darnold was on crutches after their last game, and they have elevated Daniel Jones into that backup role, taking first team reps right now. That makes you think that they wanted a quarterback that had some playoff experience, and they're not sure Darnold's going to be there.
Well, yeah, I wasn't aware of that. But we're talking about the Vikings and the Rams game. Yeah, that will definitely affect it for sure. I like the Vikings in this matchup. Mm-hmm. Although the Rams have been playing well, it's going to be a good game.
I like the Vikings if Darnold's there.
Yeah,
I don't like the Vikings if Daniel Jones is there.
No, I don't like anybody with Daniel Jones, but yeah, no, that's I would concur with that one. Yeah, I like the Vikings unless Darnold doesn't play.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm going to be watching all week, because as it sits today, I have the Rams because of what they did. The fact that they have Daniel Jones out there getting all the first team reps. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if Darnold can go, I like their overall team better. But, that's one you'll watch all week. As I recall, they have the Monday night game, so at least they get an extra day to rest him.
Right.
So the next one is also going to be a toss-up of a game with Washington headed to Tampa Bay. Tampa is winning in spite of a roster that doesn't look like they should.
Yes, I agree. And Tampa kind of goes with however they play on defense. You know what I mean? I think that the offense has been steady. Baker's had a great year. Having Mike Evans back certainly gives a big boost to that offense. They've done a good job all year, pretty much as well with points per game differential. They're sixth, which is a key stat. I like them in this matchup as well. Again, but that said, Washington's they've been such a fun team to watch this year. You never know what's going to happen with them. But
yeah, I mean,
I'm taking Tampa as well.
Washington's definitely the team of you don't know which team's showing up.
Sure. Yep.
All right, we got our third game here. Green Bay headed to Philly. I like Philly here, and the biggest reason is Jordan Love has a elbow injury. Malik Willis has a thumb injury. Now, I understand that Hurts is technically under concussion protocol, but it sounds like for all intents and purposes, he has been released from that. So he should clear before the game. If that's the case, I don't think Green Bay has a real shot. That defense for Philly is really good. And if Hurts is back out there, if you're looking at Green Bay's third string option, they're not beating anybody.
No, not many teams are going to. I like Philly in that matchup, particularly with the injury concerns that Green Bay has. I think Hurts will be fine, and I see the Eagles winning and advancing.
All right, then we head over to the AFC side. We got the Bolts headed to Houston. I have the Chargers winning this pretty easily. The Texans have not played great football, and quietly, the Chargers have a top 2 defense.
Yeah, I like the Chargers as well. I think that they've gotten better as the year has gone on. They can run the football a little bit. Herbert, as long as he's healthy and they can keep him upright, he's a tough guy to beat. And Houston's just been, they've been a little bit, I think they've suffered a little bit from sophomoritis this year. They were a more consistent team last year. I don't know that they were necessarily better or more talented. I think, they're equally talented this year. I just think they've been a little inconsistent, highly penalized, turn the ball over a little bit. But it just really depends on which team shows up. But I like the Chargers and what Coach Harbaugh has done this year in year one with them.
Absolutely. All right, we got the Steelers at the Ravens. Steelers backing into the playoffs. And just probably the biggest concern for me is the fact that down the stretch here, where they were so good at the turnover differential, they really fell the other way. Now, they're still, over the course of the year, I think they're still like plus 16. So on paper, it looks good. But if you look over the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've lost that turnover battle.
Right. Yeah, they've gotten a little bit sloppy. Again, I think, I like Baltimore. I like them a lot. I think they're a team on a mission. And another divisional game for them, It's like, are they going to? I wonder if they're going to extend Hard Knocks for one more week to cover that matchup. They should,
It is tough to beat a team 3 times.
True.
So there is that small element.
Yeah, you figured that. I mean, they know each other pretty well by now.
And then, of course, to wrap this up, you got the Broncos headed to Buffalo. It's going to be 20 degrees, a little bit breezy, possible snow. And historically, I don't think any rookie quarterbacks have won a wild card game on the road.
Good point. I think this one, this one has the makings to be a really good game, though. I mean, I know Vegas has it at Buffalo's getting 8.5 points, which is the
they don't
second.
Have that.
There's I think Baltimore's Baltimore's got a 10-point spread over Pittsburgh. That's the only one that's larger this week. But I think, I think Denver will keep it close. I really do.
Yep.
And, again, yeah, you'd much rather have this game being, played at home with a veteran quarterback. That's a huge edge for Buffalo. But Denver's a good team. They're a sneaky team, and I won't get the quote exactly right, but I read Sean Payton said something to the effect of, sometimes young and hungry is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially, sometimes youth works out, especially in the first round, right?
Sure.
Because you don't know that you're supposed to be overwhelmed. You're just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go out and play football. And sometimes that's exactly what you need.
Yeah. I think, what happens that with young players and young teams, though, they don't like the speed of the game changes in the playoffs. It's like there's a difference between the speed of play and just the intensity, like within every single play from like preseason to regular season, right? And then you definitely feel it pick up another notch when you get into the playoffs because it's the finality. Guys, the veterans, the guys that know, like, hey, there's nothing to save it for because if you lose, you're going home.
One and done.
So it's like, you see it on special teams. You see it you see it on every play. That's the thing that can get young players a little bit. But you are right, though. There's also the gift of being naive and just like, hey, it's just just another game.
Go play football.
Yeah, go play.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Unfortunately for them, they picked the Bills. Like if they were squared up against the Texans, I would say they win, especially because I like their defense. Their defense is fantastic.
Defense has played very well.
I think just the Bills ultimately will probably be a little too much for them.
Yeah. But man, I love their quarterback.
Yeah. Talk about growth over the season, right? Because those first few weeks of the year, you're just like, ooh, man, this is a little rough.
Yep. But look, coaching makes a difference, and, the jobs that Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi and Pete Carmichael have done with that guy is, it's remarkable. They've done a great job, but it's also in the selection.
Hackett would have had the same.
well, here's the thing. Like, look, Sean leans on Parcells a lot, for the lessons he learned working from him. And look, there's things that you look for in a quarterback. I know this, from being around coach myself, but Parcells would say, beware the 1-year wonder, be leery of that guy that's only done it 1 year. Bo Nix started more games in college football than anybody in the history of college football. He's a football guy. He's a coach's kid. It's like there was a lot of intangibles to go along with his physical skills that would lead you to believe that, this kid, if he got into the right system, could do really well and have success early in the league, and he has. And the reason I say they've done a good job of, I think, not giving him the entire elephant to eat all in one setting, right? They've given it to him in pieces, and I'm sure that the call sheet now compared to the beginning of the seasons looks a lot different. And if it doesn't look too much different, I'm sure the play caller's confidence in calling a lot of those things is much greater.
No question. Absolutely. And to answer your question there, Rob, Russ, I believe lost to Atlanta in the wild card round that year. it came down to like a last second field goal or something, but I believe they lost in the first round. But other than that gets us to the top of the hour. If you've been watching along with us, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring our content to you. If you're watching on Roku TV, stay tuned for the next hour. Coach, great to see you. And man, these hours always go fast.
It was a fun show. Thank you.
Absolutely. See y'all next week, everybody.